Louise, thank you so much for taking this time
Oh,
out.
how
I
are you
know you,
doing? That's okay.
Louise. I'm doing really well, and it's just so lovely to see you, and it's so lovely to catch up with you. And I often think back all this autumn. I've been thinking back
I
to that
know.
to
So
that
nice,
tour we
isn't it?
did because
I
well
know.
it was a highlight of the career, I have to say. It
Oh,
was Louise. We might as well begin, but I just want to say before the podcast, I've been doing these chats with women, and they're very much about who the woman is, her approach
mm,
to life. It's soft,
nice.
it's not going anywhere political or anything like that.
Fine.
I
I
just
don't care.
I know. Oh, okay, great. Okay, I'm going to begin then. Louise
Yeah.
Newson, thank you so much for doing my podcast. I know you because you had me as a guest on your massive theatre tour that you did this time, which ended around this time last year,
Mm.
and you toured to about 37 theatres from Portsmouth to Inverness. It was the most incredible experience, and I just want to thank you for that. And I have a question. My first question is this, Louise. You were doing that tour. I watched you. Your energy and commitment to what you do is bordering on insane. You would be getting up every morning at 5:30, 6 o'clock. You'd work all day long. You were often doing conferences. You were doing clinical stuff. You were seeing patients. You were engaging in your research. You were dealing with huge stuff in the media,
Mm.
like insane. Even that on its own, that piece would have knocked back an ordinary human. And then every night you were getting on stage and doing a 2 hour show, the length and breadth of Britain. How? Where does this drive come from? Where?
Well, you're very lovely, but it's driven. I've always worked hard, but actually, it's driven by the injustice of women not being listened to, not being believed, not being able to access just simple evidence-based treatment. And you could feel it from the audience. Every night we had people in tears. I mean, there were lots of laughter, but there was lots of really sad women thinking about, I don't have to be like this, I shouldn't have to be like this, thinking about all the horrors, all the unnecessary medication, even the little bit that you did talking, and it was funny talking about menopause shampoo or what have you, but it was ridiculous. It's
Yeah,
2025 now, this was in
yeah.
2024, that we're trying to fob women off with ridiculous treatments. And so it just feels like life's too short to just not concentrate on my work that's having an impact. And I don't mind working hard if it's impactful. And most of the time it is. But yeah, but it was great actually, the tour, because I was actually really nervous because I've never been on theatre before. I'd never done anything before. So, you gave me lots of good energy. We had a really great team. And, there's nothing better than a live audience, is there? It's just wonderful.
Well, you say that, but I was in awe watching you from the side of the stage, the way you came out. You'd such poise and connection with the audience. And you might say, okay, you're a doctor, you're used to doing conferences, you're used to communicating and talking to
Mm.
people in all sorts of settings. But it is a different proposition doing it in a theatre, and you took to it like a
Oh.
duck to water. Uh, I mean, that was you're like one of these top girls who can just do everything.
Well, I can't. I can't. I'm not very good at stacking the dishwasher, as my husband will tell you, as he restacks it
That's
every
all right.
evening.
That's allowed. And can I say another thing about the show? The show was absolutely exquisite because not only did you have all the informational stuff backed up by all your research, not just all the research, but all
Mm.
your experience through clinical practice and all the people that you've met, but you also put it in the most wonderful historical context
Mm.
of why women haven't been listened to, believed, in the whole historical context of medical research
Mm.
and of the way women are treated. And I I just want to know, is there any chance that you'll be bringing it back or doing it again? Because I'm continually telling people here in Ireland about that show when they say, "Oh, do you think it should go on HRT?" I go, "Oh, it's such a shame you couldn't see Louise's show."
Yeah.
Are you going to do it
So
again?
I am going to do another one next year, so April 26th. But it's going to be different though. I'm doing it on my own. It's going to be called Breaking the Cycle. So it's there's lots of things about a cycle, whether it's the menstrual cycle or the cycle of women just being caught in this loop of going back and forth to doctors, to psychiatrists, to, you know, all sorts of things really. So it's going to be bit more historical, but a lot more factual, a lot more raw. And I'm going to also do a lot more questions, because that question and answer session, as you know, was
Yeah.
really popular, where we got we asked the audience to write down questions, and there were far too many questions. Even though I spoke very quickly and answered them very quickly, there was still like so many. So I want to do
Yeah.
more of that as well. So hopefully
Yeah.
that will go down well.
I'm just interested in, like, your whole life. You seem to have been operating at this really high level from when you were young, because you have two
Mm,
first honours degrees. Both your degree in medicine and pathology, and then you wanted to go into oncology, which
mm.
is, to me, one of the hardest disciplines. Having been through cancer
Yeah.
and dealt with oncologists, I used to think, oh my God, you've chosen a
Mm.
tough station there, because I'm just interested in that level you've always worked on. Where does that drive in you come from?
It's a great question. I think some of it is just because I've got an inquisitive mind, and there's always more to learn. There's always lots. I've always liked reading. I've always been very good at occupying myself with knowledge, because I think it's just so brilliant to learn more and more. And then I think, even though I always wanted to do medicine, so no one in my family's ever been a doctor, as far as I know. So I just wanted to become a doctor, and then, when my father died when I was 9, I just thought, this is so unfair. Like, and I naively thought, well, if I can become a doctor, I can stop other people maybe dying or
Is
having
that
cancer.
what pointed you towards
Probably,
medicine?
no, because I wanted to do medicine even when he was alive. So, but I think maybe oncology, I thought, well, he had cancer, he had a brain tumor. And I probably then thought, I want to work out what cancer is and see what I can do to try and prevent it and to treat people who have cancer. But then when I did an oncology job, so in medicine, you do your basic training, you have a year as a junior doctor. Then I went to New Zealand and did a year doing different specialties in medicine, came back and did a cancer medicine job as part of doing some of my exams for the Royal College of Physicians. And I just thought, actually, it's not holistic enough for me. It was very much, bed 8 is Mr. Smith with lymphoma, bed 6 is Mrs. Bloggs with a cancer of her throat. And it was very much, the person was defined by her cancer or his cancer. And there was a protocol. They have this chemo and that chemo, and expect this side effect, give them this drug, which is absolutely fine. It's really important. But then when the same person came back in with a chest infection, it was almost like the oncologists weren't so interested, because it wasn't part of the cancer pathway. It was then, oh no, you need to get another
Yeah,
doctor to give them antibiotics or whatever.
yeah,
And I just thought, hang on, I don't know anything about Mr. whoever with lymphoma in bed 8. I want to know, who's at home with him? Is he worried about dying? Does he think he's going to get better? What's going on in his mind? And I just thought, actually, I want to be a really holistic doctor, where I'm treating the condition and the disease, but also the person as a person, not as a patient. And I just thought it's not quite everything that I thought it would be. So that's why I did my exams and everything, and then I went into general practice. But it was also for lifestyle, because then I didn't have children. But I thought, if I have children, back then in the 1990s, it was quite hard to go part-time as a doctor,
yeah,
especially in medicine, because you do a lot of on-call and various things. And I just thought, actually, if I'm blessed and have children, I just want to see them and watch them and know them
yeah.
as they grow up. So that's why I changed and went into general practice,
And
which
when you were
yeah.
studying medicine, where did the pathology piece come in? Because you had you.
Yeah, so it was interesting. So in Manchester University, where I trained, you could take a year out and do like a 3-year degree in a year. So you could do a BSc honours
Yeah,
degree in one year. So it's pretty intense. And I wanted to do it in pathology, because it's the study of disease. And I thought, actually, if you understand why a disease occurs, maybe you can try and prevent it happening. So I just thought it was really relevant to the work that I would do in the future. And I did some lab based research as well. And then there was a lot of information and knowledge that I learned about, you know, the lovely macrophage, that beautiful
Yeah, yeah,
cell that I showed every evening, which is our fights our immune, it helps our immune system to work. And it just made me think differently, actually, which has really helped for me as a doctor, because so many times in medicine it's very reactive. You know, you see someone with a condition, you give them this treatment, but actually understanding what the condition is and what goes wrong in the body is really important. So I learned a lot. You know, it's like anything in life, you don't understand why you're doing it at the time, and then you go
yeah.
back and think, no, actually that there was a reason I did this,
And
and
then the
that. So
menopause piece came in through, it was kind of through your own experience when
well,
you,
it wasn't.
was
Yes,
it?
it was
Was
sort of
it?
that as well. But after I trained as a GP, I then got pregnant with my first daughter, Jess, who you met, and
Yeah,
so then I decided. In fact, I resigned from my job as a GP when I was pregnant because they wouldn't reduce my hours, and I said,
yeah,
"Look, forget this." So I just resigned. Like when I was 25 weeks pregnant, that's quite a risk, isn't it?
yeah,
And so then I got a job working 2 days a week as a GP because I thought that's a good balance. But I didn't really want to just do coffee and whatever
yeah.
as a mum. So I decided to do medical writing, and I'd already written,
Oh, yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
I'd already written some books on evidence-based medicine, and so I carried on with writing, and I wrote for a company where we would write information for patients and then for doctors as well. So it was all based on evidence and guidelines, and I did a lot of work with the Royal College of GPs. So it was a way of like keeping me up to date as well, actually. And when you write about something, you have to know the detail. You can't just fabricate that
Yeah,
you know. So it was great. So I worked very hard on that. And then the NICE menopause guidance came out in 2015. So I was
yeah.
asked to summarize those. So I summarized those, and then I went back and read that ridiculous Women's Health Initiative study that scared everyone away
Yes, yeah, yeah,
unnecessarily from hormones. And so then I wrote about this study, but it's not relevant because it's not the type of hormones we prescribe. And, you know, the risk was very small. There's lots of benefits. And then I started to get symptoms as well, but hadn't put the two and two together. But it was really also my friends, a lot of friends, mums from school were having some symptoms and they're going to see their own GP, which is not obviously me, and they were coming out with antidepressants. And I'd never heard
yeah,
anything so ridiculous in my life, because
yeah,
there's one thing not having hormones or having hormones. There's another thing being medicalized for a symptom. Like they had low
yeah.
mood, but they weren't depressed.
That
So
happened
I
to
was
me.
like,
Yeah,
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 what's going on?
yeah,
So
yeah,
then I thought, well, I'll set up a clinic and I'll try and see people. And I wanted to do it in the NHS. But the NHS clinics are usually run by gynecologists who said, no, we don't want a GP working with us. So then I started doing just 1 day a week as a private clinic in a hospital, and it became busier and busier. And I set up my dedicated clinic. Yeah, so it sort of stemmed from that really. But then when I was experiencing symptoms, I spent a few months like thinking I'd give up my job because I couldn't remember anything,
yeah.
I couldn't concentrate, I was tearful, I was emotional, and my
But did
migraines are
you
worse,
know?
you know.
Did you say to yourself, "This is
No,
menopause"? Yeah,
no.
but
The
this is the
irony
thing. Yeah,
is, the irony is, Anne, I was lecturing GPs and saying, look, guys, it's not just flushes and sweats. You can get joint pain, you can get headaches, you can get worsening migraines, you can get urinary symptoms, you can get poor sleep. And that was me, but I hadn't even thought. And then I go home and say to my husband, God, I'm so tired. I don't know what's happening to me. Maybe it's because I've got 3 children now. And I didn't like join the dots because it was almost when I was lecturing and teaching, that's about other women, not me. And like it's madness because I was 45 then, which is the average age of women to become
I was.
perimenopausal.
Yeah, well, I was 45 when I had breast cancer, and
Mm,
I would say 3 weeks into the chemotherapy, I started having the most appalling hot
yeah.
flushes, and I thought, oh, this is a side effect of chemotherapy, and there
Mm,
was at no point I thought. This is anything to do with menopause, because even though I was told that my periods would stop and probably wouldn't come back, I didn't connect it at all to menopause, and
no.
it was never mentioned. And
No.
then, having gone through it all and being so happy that to be alive, because I had stage 3 triple negative. So yeah, it was pretty intense, and I was so happy to be alive. And it overall had been a fascinating and life changing experience. But my mood was so
Mm.
flat for no reason. And my thinking then was, well, if the oncology saved me, I believe in medicine. I'm going to medically treat my low mood. And then I ended up on very strong antidepressants. I actually ended up on lithium for a while, and they just stopped my life. They stopped my
Oh.
life. I gained loads of weight. All my drive went, and then it's when I started writing the show. Only about 5 years ago that I went. That was all menopause, and that was at that point I went on HRT, came off the antidepressants. I've never felt
Mm.
better, and I that's why I just related. So many women relate to your passion around information, and it's life changing. Like you had that piece in the show, the documentary piece of the woman who was such a high flyer, so functional, and then at around the age of 50, everything began falling apart, and she was diagnosed with untreatable clinical depression, and she
Mm.
didn't make it. And that, I mean, it's such a powerful message, Louise. It's just so
Mm.
important, the work you're doing. And on that note, can I just say, I just I find uh, some of the negative press you've got
Mm.
so unfair, as so many people who follow what you do and have found the information you provided to them life changing, literally life changing and
Mm.
life saving. I find I find it so unfair, and I didn't realize till I was reading the Times article this weekend how how much it has negatively
Mm.
affected your professional
Mm.
practice
Mm.
and how you're perceived. And I just wonder, how do you give that a place, Louise?
It's really hard, and I mean, because when we were doing the tour on day 2, we were in Nottingham, and that was when the Panorama documentary hit. And I watched it earlier in the day, and it was easy the first night because I thought, okay, whatever, it's just television. Next day there'll be something else. But actually, as the show went on, there was lots of things going on behind the scenes and lots of awfulness. And I just thought, actually, this is terrible. And that it went on and really reached a peak awfulness in January, really this year. And like I said in the Times, I have reached some really dark places, but then what's happened is that women have been really confused by this. And we see it in the clinic. Women are coming back to us who have been very stable on their hormones for years. The GPs have been prescribing for them for years. And now they're suddenly saying, no, we won't prescribe for you anymore. If you go to that awful clinic, you'll have to go back. And so women are coming back saying, if I can't take my hormones, I'm going to be back on antidepressants. I'm going to be back without a job. I'm going to be back with having these awful symptoms. And I'm just thinking, this is really, really wrong. So one of the things that keeps me going, other than my children forcing me to keep working, is like, actually it's not fair on these women. Like there's a bit of a sort of, the establishment are not happy. There's various people as sort of written about the Times, really, who really aren't happy with some of the work that I've done for years. But that's typical sort of bullies. I was bullied a lot at school for being clever. It wasn't really an academic school, the first school I went to. And I found that really hard growing up, when you're a teenager in an all-girls school and the mean girls are there. But actually what I learned is that people who are nice aren't usually mean. And I think that the same, life's really hard for so many people, and they don't choose it to be hard. But if you've got this sort of bitterness, this horribleness inside you, you can't be a kind person. And one of our messages that we put to everyone at the end of the show was about being kind, and it was very poignant because we'd already planned the content before the Panorama documentary, the documentary hit and everything. But it actually, I think it resonated with people, didn't it? Like
Yeah,
in medicine, you can agree to disagree, like in anything. You get 3 lawyers in a room, you'll get 4 different
yeah,
opinions. You get 10 doctors in the room, you'll get 11 different opinions, and that's fine. But this is fighting over ridiculousness, really, because they seem to not have a kind thing to say about me, but it's making it
Yeah,
confusing
because
for women.
I felt the documentary wasn't coming from a place of debate because it was very one-sided and they didn't even talk to you and there was given no, I mean, your whole show was about your research and it was all
Mm,
evidence-based. Everything you said was supported by evidence,
mm,
both your research and your clinical practice and
yeah,
women's experience, and by, which I think is so important, the feedback from the women literally
yeah,
there in front of you every night and their experience. And I think I found that very disappointing that it was very one-sided and that
mm,
I was shocked to read, Louise, this weekend that
mm,
that is still impacting because often you know being in the entertainment business you often get negative press or whatever, and my thing would always be give it no oxygen, it will pass, and
yes,
you
well,
know
of course,
exactly, yeah,
absolutely,
it will
yeah,
pass, let it go, don't even hardly even you know
mm,
acknowledge it. But I went, wow, this is, I don't know how you negotiate something like this because it's just put a big stain there that's
mm,
obviously, and I didn't realize that it had affected, you know, that you had to let a third of your doctors go. That's
mm,
awful.
mm. It was really hard because without the business, we wouldn't be able to keep balance going, my podcast, anything. And um, but things happen for a reason, and I'm quite philosophical actually. And I think out of badness, good things happen. Out of hard times, you grow stronger. And I've got good people around me, and I know what I'm doing is right. At the end of the day, if I
Yeah,
was doing something
yeah,
wrong, I wouldn't have a medical
yeah, yeah.
license. I have had my
Mm.
appraisal earlier this year, which was excellent. The
Yeah,
appraiser was very
yeah,
thorough. So, I feel like we've just got to move forward, and also I like you say, everything I do is out of evidence and clinical
mm,
knowledge and experience. I've been a doctor for 30 years.
yeah,
I do know what I'm doing. And also, I put patients, well, women, because I only see women now, at the center of my consultation. I'm not pinning people down and forcing them to take hormones, And so I think that's sort of
yeah,
forgotten as well, really. And
yeah,
yes, I won't get everything right. You can go to a Michelin star restaurant and you might not like
yeah,
the food. Doesn't mean that chef is the worst person ever. There's
yeah,
always going to be people that aren't happy. But have I done harm? Have I done long-lasting harm? Well, the clinic's been going 8 years now. You'd think that, you'd
yeah,
know if I was. And actually, we have thousands of patients whose lives have been turned around. But not just the patients, as you could see in the tour, there's lots of women who have read my book, they listened to my podcast, they've downloaded Balance, and they've become really empowered themselves.
yeah,
And that's really important because as
yeah,
women, we should be able to make choices about our
yeah,
health, about our lifestyle, about our hormones as well. And somehow the last bit about having hormones has been taken away from so many of us because we've just been
yeah,
told no.
yeah.